Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Pig City podcast episode. Sorry, I forgot to talk there. Thank you so much for the views so far. A lot of you have sent comments, messages on different platforms. Keep it coming. Again, comments on YouTube do help the best, but thank you so much. If you can just take a second and just like the video, whether you like it or not. And I'm not telling you not to listen to the rest, but that really does help a lot, and we're doing a great job. So this is actually going to be the last of our three top 10 tiers. We may have some others to come in the future, but we are on the running back episode. We've done quarterbacks and wide receivers. Those will be linked at the end of this video if you want to check out those to see who you have where. So we're going to hop right into this. We always start with one fantasy question. This one's a little weird, but it'll actually kind of spoil something when I get to the end. But the basic concept of the question is, if you have a running back, I'm sorry, I was pulling this up. If you have a running back that is coming off of an injury, how much do you factor that into their draft position, and how much do you factor that into how successful they will be? Well, first off, success is obviously a very arbitrary word as far as for scoring and if you're going to use them in a fantasy aspect. But as far as coming off an injury, one guy that I will say that should be on every list is not on mine, and I'll get to at the very end. Coming off a big injury, I'm very weary at the beginning, especially if they couldn't finish the year. It's one thing if they saw them at the end of the year a little bit, a little hobbled up, but able to get back into the games. However, a lot of leg injuries, especially running backs. We know the running back league is very tough, and what makes this tier list so hard, and what makes the top list so hard, and what makes drafting so hard with running backs. There's very few that are not in committees, as we'll get to today. But I'm very, very skeptical. Obviously, depending on price, if you get them, around later than the ADP, go for it. Why not? But I usually just try to stay away as much as possible. But at the same time, if you do get one of those guys, go ahead and get the second string or whoever's going to be starting as first string to handcuff with them as well if they're in a good situation. That's a kind of boring answer, not super exciting, but it's something that happens a lot with running backs. And my personal philosophy is kind of just stay away or end up having to use another roster spot to go ahead and add that extra person. But all right, we're going to go ahead and start the list. At number 1, we have Christian McCaffrey. No spoilers there. He is truly the difference maker at the running back position. 49ers trade for him a couple years ago. We thought this was going to be insane. We're going to see him in the Shanahan offense. And it's been dominant basically in every way. They hardly ever lose when they have a fully healthy team, and they run it and run it and run it. And he is a huge part of that cog in the machine for the San Francisco 49ers. Besides everything he does for their offense, opportunities, and how Shanahan can move him and obviously move different players around, and Debo can be in the backfield sometimes. And, you're going to have Mitchell back there a few games, or for a few carries, I should say. Despite all of that, and despite Brock Purdy having a very good year and having some good pass catchers, and Ayuk and Debo and Kittle, and now they draft the wideout Ricky from Florida, I believe. He had 14 rushing touchdowns, 7 receiving touchdowns, and over 2,000 total yards again. He's number 1. Truthfully, not really close to me of who even number 2 would be. There's honestly zero return for C-Mac returning in this offense. I'm not going to spend much time on it. The only thing really that you could not believe in for is if you think the Madden curse for running backs is a real thing. And when that's the only real critique I can have of you, C-Mac's going to go, especially fantasy life in redrafts. He's going to be the first running back off the board in almost every single draft. And depending on if it's flex or super flex or OP or super flex leagues, he's probably going 1-1 in a lot of drafts. So a lot of potential there for C-Mac. And I honestly probably spent too much time on one of the most obvious number ones. I would say of all the lists, he's the consensus number 1 in all of the positions. Moving on to number 2, Bijan Robinson. A little too high, a little biased, maybe. Here's the rationale. We know Arthur Smith. Absolutely no clue what was going on. Matter of fact, I started thinking about Arthur Smith today and kind of made a mistake and got rid of this because I didn't want to be associated with that man in any way. They now have Raheem Morris, Zach Robinson, and the Falcons are going from a combo of Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke to Kirk Cousins. And regardless how you feel about Kirk Cousins, that has to be an upgrade. All extreme reasons for optimism, and as well as basically everything coming out of what we've heard from meetings, workouts, everything so far. Bijan's going to be a focal point of this offense. He's dynamic. He made the Toy Story game fun last year. He had some of the best jukes in the entire league. And hopefully, whoever was operating the overhead cam for the Falcons Stadium got a raise because of him and the moves he could make, because that looked absolutely sick at all times. And despite that, he didn't really live up to the hype last year of being, a top pick at the running back position. And the Falcons get criticized for they take a tight end early, they take a running back early, and the quarterback they take early is bad and basically out already. Despite all that, he still had 1,400 all-purpose yards, and he ended up still with 8 touchdowns. Both numbers, I fully anticipate. I would put a large amount of faith, I'll use the word faith, not money, on it being much higher this year. The only other running back that I possibly, honestly, truly would consider putting at number 2 is a person I have at number 3, and that is Breece Hall. Shouts out to some of the Jets fans in the comments and the chats. They're excited to see Garrett Wilson crack the list, but Breece Hall is 2 or 3 on this list. Again, look at the situation he's in. The quarterback was even worse than Bijan's situation. Their offensive line should be better this year. Can't be a whole lot worse. It should be monumental for Breece. And also, he's healthier going into this season. Not coming off of a bad injury. You saw him fully healthy. About almost 1,600 all-purpose yards, 9 touchdowns. And he's going from Zach Wilson to Aaron Rodgers. That's really all that needs to be said, which should certainly increase optimism. But if Rodgers even isn't Rodgers, or for some reason isn't on the field, it can't be worse. It can't be worse for Breece at the quarterback position. But more importantly, the Jets should be more well-rounded as well. Add a few other options as well. They bring in Mike Williams. They're going to be even if it's a little more methodical offense, they're going to be a very much more well-rounded and a fully healthy Breece. I'm excited to see for years to come. At the running back position, obviously we got C-Mac at the top, but I think this is Breece and Bijan for the next several years. And I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see them both healthy. You could make an argument Breece is better, that he's the better athlete. He's a better running back. I'm not going to do that, but he's still good and should be respected as such. And honestly, I'm just very excited for him for years to come. And he's absolutely electric, and he can score when he touches the ball. And there's not a lot of people that's always true for. Number 4, Jonathan Taylor. Look, this isn't clickbait. This isn't hot. This is a true belief. Now, I'll get to the skepticism in a second. But whether it be the holdout or help, we collectively have forgotten how good Jonathan Taylor is at football. He's incredible. While there might be more concern for how JT is going to fare with Anthony Richardson not being able to stay on the field if he can't, at this point, there's no reason to believe Anthony Richardson for sure will. Seems like he's healthy and put on a little more muscle right now. But at the end of the day, Taylor's a top 5 back in the NFL. Putting him this high on the list is a ceiling play. I want to make that clear. This is what he can be. I'm not saying he's for sure going to be here. It's definitely more risky than some of the other players. I just am thinking about Shane Steichen, Jonathan Taylor, Anthony Richardson, RPOs, stretch handoffs, coming out to the outside, JT in between the tackles. He probably has the biggest chance of not living up to his ranking here, but I'm going to choose to be optimistic with all these guys. And regardless where he needs to be in your top 10. I'm hoping, praying for his health, for him and his quarterback. And also, he's only 25. I know the holdout and the contract and everything, and I know running back years are a little different, but it's not like he's actually super old. He's younger than you probably think he is. Maybe it's because we just saw him run for miles and miles of Wisconsin, and he's had a weird career and a really weird situation with the organization in general, but hopefully we see that JT again. Rounding out the top 5, we have a fan base that's probably not a huge fan of mine, but Jahmyr Gibbs. Another young electric factory. When Gibbs touches the ball, there's genuinely a chance he can take it to the house, no matter where he is on the field. 11 times last year he did it. Over 1,000 yards for the year, including taking him a little bit to get ingrained in the offense. He also has St. Brown, Laporta, also David Montgomery, who had 13 rushing touchdowns last year. He might not get the same amount of goal line targets or red zone targets, but even if his usage doesn't change, which we have reason to think it would go up a little, he's not going to be fully – nobody on that team is going to be fully the workhorse, of course. Even if it stays the same or just goes up a little, it's going to be a top offense. He's going to be used a lot. And I don't have a stat necessarily for this, but there was this weird things. I feel like he had several opportunities where he just slipped. If y'all remember those plays, if you know what I'm talking about. I can't really explain that, and maybe that's a tiny uptick as well. Maybe I'm mad that he missed those chances, but I don't think that really affects his ranking too much. It's more he's a fun player to watch. Unless you're cheering against him, it's on a strong offense. I think he's only going to get better. He's going to be used even more throughout the year. Jahmyr Gibbs, number 5. Number 6 on the list, we have home team, which is still crazy to say, Saquon Barkley. Now, really quickly, imagine going from the worst, literally the worst rated offensive line in the league to a top 2 offensive line. I know Jason Kelce left. It might cause a problem. The Eagles are going to be a top 5 offensive line. They almost always are. They're going to be healthy. He's going from the worst. Now imagine going from Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor and Tommy DeVito with not really much of an actual wide receiver threat to Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. Now, Saquon, despite having that offensive line that, honestly, as bad as they were, the worst part was they couldn't stay healthy. And even when they were healthy, they were terrible, but they barely even all played together. But you don't have to pay Saquon the money. Guess what? He still had 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns with that terrible of a situation. And there's going to be other mouths to feed. But here's the thing about paying somebody that money. The Eagles are not investing that money in Saquon just for him to be kind of used. He's going to get the rock. They're going to use him. Another little fun thing about the Eagles, they don't really pay running backs and don't really draft them high either. So when they do and they see that he could be that much of a focal point in this offense that should be just really blossoming this year, Shallow Sirianni, Flowers, he's going to be used. And obviously, I'm an Eagles fan. Again, maybe there's bias. I want to see the best version of this offense, especially after how dreadful again ended last year. I still can't really believe that happened. But this offense is going to be humming again. And I expect Saquon Barkley to be doing the same thing. He's going to be an integral part of a top 5 offense. He's a number 6 running back. I'm very excited to see what he can do. And I'm sure he's excited to not be literally chased in the backfield like he's been experiencing. Number 7. Derrick Henry. The best rushing team in the NFL adds one of, if not the best running back of the generation. Yet somehow, someway, I think Derrick Henry's being overlooked. But he kind of lost a step. He slowed down a little. All right. Last year, guess what? In your mind, honestly, right now, guess where he finished rushing yards last? 2nd. Guess how many running backs had more rushing touchdowns than him in the league? Here's the most interesting fact about those 4 running backs that had more than him. One of them was Gus Edwards. Who was he the running back for? Baltimore Ravens. Why did he have so many touchdowns? Because he was a goal line back for the Baltimore Ravens. They have a great offense. 2-time MVP at quarterback. And now Lamar gets the best running back he's ever had with him. Sorry, no disrespect. In the best offense in the league. We're not talking about the playoffs and they forgot they were the best offense. We're talking about a guy that's top 4 in the league in rushing touchdowns at the running back position, 2nd in yards, so his usage was extreme. And if you think maybe they're not going to use him that way, who do you trust more near the goal line, Gus Edwards or Derrick Henry? Who do you trust more anywhere on the field, Gus Edwards or Derrick Henry? So if Gus Edwards is getting those goal line touches, Derrick Henry's going to get those goal line touches. So that's not going to go down. He's not going to have less opportunities on the Ravens than he did on the Titans. Sure, he may not get as many rushing attempts throughout the whole year. Obviously, he's not. Lamar's going to run. They're going to be a part of it. It's part of their team. But there's been awful luck with injuries in this backfield. But Lamar, with the team and a coach that obviously liked giving the ball near the goal line and handing it off. I mean, Gus Edwards wasn't great last year, but he got touchdowns. And now you add Derrick Henry to this. I don't know what exactly is happening where this is being so overlooked. I don't see this hardly being talked about. I don't see it being discussed much. Derrick Henry has a chance to be dominant with this team. And at worst case, let's say he's not dominant, he's going to score touchdowns. So I guess it depends on what you really value in things. But I want a running back that's generational and going to score a lot of touchdowns. Maybe that's just me. Obviously, I don't think he's Derrick Henry best version or he wouldn't be this low on the list. But Derrick Henry, number 7. All right. Moving on along to number 8. Kyren Williams. 3rd most rushing yards in the league. 6th most touchdowns at the running back position. A team's offense, no real reason to think it's not going to improve. His touchdowns could regress a little. He did have some very high touchdown performances as well. Relatively healthy. He's a potential star in the making. I put him on here with caution, but he's a tough, hardworking back. He has opportunities. We've seen success out of his backfield, but he gets it going in a way that a replacement just can't do for an extended period of time. And I trust his opportunity share. I trust his offense. I don't really have a reason for doubt. I'm curious to see what's Kyron's like ceiling? Because we've seen this before, exactly this situation, but we've seen running backs that are pretty successful, have good success, they believe in, and then they just can't sustain that, and they end up still being solid, but they fall into more of a 2-3 situation running back committee, or they're the one of 1A, 2A, whatever. If that didn't make any sense, I'll put it this way. Believe in Kyron Williams, believe in the Rams offense, put him in there. He's a top 10 backs. Here's a PSA for fantasy football players, especially Dynasty, more than anything else. This is the one thing I'll say about Kyron Williams. If you believe in somebody and you have them in Dynasty, don't get rid of them. Take up the roster spot. Just keep them. Don't let your friend, just because they're a Notre Dame fan, finesse you into trading Kyron away for a player that you believe in less than Kyron. Just don't get finessed. Hypothetically, of course. Sorry, got pretty personal. I think about that literally every single day. The biggest gap in my Dynasty team, I could have him. All right, number 9 on the list. Etienne, whichever way you want to say it. One of those is correct. Leave a comment. You can let me know which one. Travis Etienne Jr. Probably the running back on this list that I don't really know how to explain it all. It's kind of weird. For whatever reason, he doesn't really excite me the way he should. Regardless, he's still on the list. 11th most rushing yards, 7th most rushing touchdowns, 500, almost 500 yards receiving. He just didn't have the consistency you want, but it seems like for some reason there's this untapped potential, allegedly, that is there. I'm really not a hater if it sounds like that. Honestly, the more I think of it, the more I'm saying it right now, it's maybe just I just don't really get really excited about this offense as a whole. And he's going to be involved. He's in a great position to be involved with his offense, but I guess it's maybe I just more how I feel about the Jags offense in general more than him as a player. But he's a solid player on a solidish offense, and that's the insight I have on him. I think he's a borderline top 10 player. I'll say this, I think he can move up a few spots, but truthfully, more likely I see him move down a few spots. Jag fans, tell me why I'm wrong. All 7 of you. Just kidding. Sorry. Unsolicited shot at the Jags. Maybe him and his quarterback recreate that Tiger magic out of Clemson that they had together. I don't know. Maybe I'll just go win the lottery if we're just saying hypotheticals. All right. Sorry. Last one. Thanks again for listening. Like the video, please. Like it. Comment something. Comment bad, good, one word. Don't really care. Please, please, please like it. Comment it. Thank you, those of you who shared it, posted it on your stories, whatever the case may be. Truly, truly appreciate it. Actually, I've gotten very good feedback so far. Little announcement for the channel. We will start doing some fantasy Q&As, be releasing next week. And then after that, we'll be doing full division breakdowns of every single division, discussing outlooks for teams overall from a fantasy aspect and real life aspect. We'll be doing our division predictions, division breakdowns starting in 2 weeks. Next week, we'll have some fantasy Q&A. So if you have a question you would like answered about any division, drop it in the comment. I'll see it. Send a message on Instagram on the page, or I'll link to my personal Instagram. You can send on there as well. Look, send any questions you have. Maybe even if it wants to be silly, the more questions we have, the better. Those will be 20 to 30-minute episodes as well. Thanks for holding your attention. Back to the list. Number 10, Devon Achane. Achane. Again, people want to pronounce things weird, including myself. This is definitely a fun pick. Don't get me wrong. And you can make many people say, yeah, well, this person should be here. And good. Tell me why. But look, even if his targets and uses isn't much more than it was last year, we have reason to think it would be. I'll get into that in a second. But if he's healthy and has a full season, he's going to be extremely productive. Mostert, true runner, still definitely part of the offense. Them drafting Jalen Wright, again, they traded up to go get him. It speaks to me more of the future of Mostert than they're going to phase out Achane. I do think Mostert's going to be overlooked this year. He might be a sleeper in a different realm if you want to check in on some fantasy updates. Ask a question if you want to. So I'm not really even saying this is a slight against Mostert, but it's more that Achane, he has the same appeal with some of the others on this list, like Gibbs or Hall, where they can touch the ball and from any place on the field. As a matter of fact, also I just love watching him run the ball. It's beautiful. He had the 11th most rushing touchdowns. His teammate, his running mate, Mostert, had the most touchdowns in the league, yet he still had the 11th most. I think that's going to be divvied out a little more, so that raises him a little. But here's where I get excited about him. Only 3 players in the league had more 20-plus yards runs than him, and no one had more 40-plus yards runs than him. So watching a game where he's involved, where he can just break away at any point, you want that. If you're drafting for your fantasy team, you want that on your team. Those are the players that's very fun. Sure, there's going to be people that are consistent, 5-6 yards, and they can get some goal line. but you want this guy. You want to cheer for him. You want to watch him. That Miami offense is fun. Okay. Maybe if it's cold, don't start it. But in all seriousness, he's electric. He's going to be extremely good in the future. I think it starts now. Again, I think Achane and Wright could be a potentially great duo moving forward. He's not a guy you really want getting a full workload. He's not really big, right? He's not going to be a bruiser. So it's fine that he's not. And you're not taking him as a top 5 guy. And again, it is a fun pick, but I have more faith in him, honestly, than a few other people on this list. But he does slide in at number 10 here for me. Now, as I said earlier, disclaimer in the final closing remarks of this. Again, thanks so much. Please like and subscribe. I want to give a shout out to Nick Chubb, a notable miss on this list. Obviously, he's very clearly a top 10 back. That's not really up for debate. However, I don't really know his recovery or what it's going to look like or how strong he's going to be when the season starts. Again, he had that gruesome injury. If there's one person that can do it, is Nick Chubb. But him recovering, coming back, and playing even close to the level he is and was at, I find it hard to believe. It's not as much doubting him as just doubting coming back from that injury. I'm just so glad he's going to ever play again. I love Nick Chubb, so if you started commenting about I missed him or blah, 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 I even said at the very top, that's what I'm referring to in the first question. And if you made it to the end, thank you. Love Nick Chubb. Love you more. Like, share, subscribe. We're going to have more content coming soon. Like I said, we have ranking series ending with this video for now for the top 10s. We're going to have division breakdowns. We're going to have fantasy Q&As. Let us know what you want. Lots of content coming. Thank you. See you.